Hi guys, Mrs. Cox here. I hope that you're all feeling well and everybody's okay. I'm going to be reading you the second chapter today of The Boy with the Bronze Axe, which has been our book above pay grade, and we're continuing with it. Today I'm going to do chapter 21 to 28, and then I'll be asking you some questions, maybe as we go along or maybe at the end. You can find the questions that go with this section of the book. If you click on your timetable on the Year 6 website, then you should be able to get straight to the link and scroll down the page and find the questions for this section of the book on an orange background page. So here we go. Chapter 2, The Axe of Bronze. The children helped Tenko to haul his boat high up beyond the reach of the tide in the Bay of Skell. Before Tenko left his boat, he reached into the bottom of it and took out his treasures from beneath his wolfskin coat. There was a light bow of springy birchwood and a bundle of shafts tipped with flint arrowheads. The most precious treasure of all, flat and shining, was a bronze axe fastened by thongs of leather to a haft of wood. Tenko lifted it with reverence. It was almost as dear to him as life itself. Callie and Brocken looked at it with big eyes. "That's not like our axes. Our axes are carved out of stone. What is your axe made of?" Callie asked. "The head is made of bronze." "Bronze? What is bronze?" Callie asked. "Is it not a kind of stone?" "No, but it is made of something that is found in the earth and is melted in a great fire." Brocken stroked the haft of the axe. "What is this? It is not so hard or as cold as stone." "It is wood." "Like your boat?" Callie's quick eyes saw the stuff of both was the same. "What is wood?" "It comes from trees. In my land there are many trees." "Trees? What are trees?" Brocken asked. Tenko looked at him with astonished eyes. "Have you no trees growing in your land?" The children shook their heads, bewildered. Tenko took one of his arrows, and with it he drew a tree in his sand, a tree with long branches. Callie and Brocken watched, fascinated. Suddenly Callie clapped her hands. She pointed to the trunk of the tree and to the long hollowed-out boat drawn up on the sand. "Your boat has come from that?" "Yes, yes." "It grows big out of the ground?" Callie spread her arms. "Yes, that is a tree. Surely you have seen a tree?" Callie shook her head. "We have no big trees like that in our island, but we have tiny ones." She seized the arrow and drew a small gorse bush. Tenko nodded. "Sometimes, but not often, there are pieces of trees brought ashore by the tide. Once, long ago, a large tree was washed into our bay by a storm. I do not remember it, but Lokar, the old wise man of our tribe, told us about it. His father saw it," Callie told Tenko. "Did they not make a boat out of it?" Tenko asked. "Yes, that is another of the tales Lokar tells. He said it was not a good boat, for it kept rolling over. 3 young men set out in it, but they never came back again. Lokar said they might have gone to another island." "There are other islands besides this one, then?" Tenko asked. "Yes, but we have never been to see them. Our boats are not big enough." "Have you got boats?" "Yes, but they are only big enough for one man. My father made one of sheepskin stretched over the bones of animals. He uses it sometimes to cross a channel to the rocks so that he can gather limpets," Callie told Tenko. Brocken was fingering Tenko's axe with interest. He lifted it and tried the weight of it in his hand. Tenko did not forbid him, but as soon as Brocken had laid it down, Tenko picked it up and tucked it away in a big flap-like pocket inside his cloak. Before Brocken could ask another question, there came a shout from the village of the stone huts just above the sand dunes. Bruno had emerged from the narrow opening to the huts and came running towards the children. "It is my father! He's come back from the Ring of Brodgar!" Callie exclaimed. "Where have you been?" Bruno asked. He sounded angry. Then he noticed Tenko. "Who is this?" "He is a boy from over the sea, father. He came in a long boat, just like the ones Lokar told us about," Callie explained quickly. Bruno looked disbelieving. "Yes, he did, father," Brocken put in. "Look, there is his boat down there." He pointed to the long dark shape of the boat lying on the beach. Bruno cast a quick, astonished glance at it. "Which island are you from, lad? There are no islands here where men build boats like that." "I am from no island. I come from a great land across the sea to the south. My boat was blown here in a storm." Bruno looked unbelieving, and Callie put in quickly, "Lurchar told us that there was such a land, father. Do you not remember?" Callie was eager that Bruno should accept Tenko with friendship. "Tenko took us off the rocks just in time before the sea washed us off," Brocken put in, also eager that his father should like their new friend. "Which rocks?" Bruno asked sharply. Callie hung her head a little. We went to the far rocks to get limpets for your meal, father." She pointed to the rocks over which the sea was breaking in clouds of spray. "See? We got crabs and an eel too." She feared her father's anger, and womanlike, she was trying to placate him with the thought of a good meal to come. Bruno was not to be beguiled, however. "You went to the far rocks and took Brocken with you? You disobeyed my word?" The first question today is, what does the word beguiled mean? I'll read the section again. She feared her father's anger, and womanlike, she was trying to placate him. She was trying to calm him with the thought of a good meal to come. Bruno was not to be beguiled, however. Have a think about what the word beguiled might mean in this context. "You went to the far rocks and you took Brocken with you. You disobeyed my word." "The tide was very low, father. I did not think there would be any danger," Callie faltered. "There were so many limpets and crabs that we did not notice the tide rising." Brocken was too fond of Callie to let her take all the blame. "I asked Callie to take me, and Tenko reached us with his boat and saved us before the waves could wash us off the rock." A little crowd of people had come out of the stone huts when they heard Bruno's voice raised in anger. They stared in astonishment at Tenko. Bruno turned to the boy. "You saved my children from drowning? For that I thank you, stranger. Will you eat with us before you set off back again in your boat to your own land?" Suddenly Tenko staggered from utter weariness and faintness from hunger. The tossing for 2 nights and a day in the boat had left him weak. The cloak he was clutching round him flew open, and the axe with the shining head fell to the ground. A murmur of surprise ran round the crowd. A youth, a little older than Tenko, stooped to pick it up from the ground, but Tenko quickly recovered himself and snatched it up first. He stood there with the axe in his hand, menacing and gleaming. Once again he swayed on his feet, almost fainting. Bruno put out an instinctive hand to help him. "Father, let him sleep in our house tonight. He has not slept, and he has not eaten for more than 2 days, Callie begged Bruno. "Come with me, boy," Bruno said. With his arm supporting Tenko, he led the way down to the stone passage to his hut. Even in his utter exhaustion, Tenko still clutched the axe. Callie carried the skin cloak he had dropped. Neither of them saw the look of hate and envy that the youth who had tried to pick up the axe gave Tenko, but Brocken caught it out of the corner of his eye. Stempsy, Bruno's wife, gave a cry of surprise when she saw Tenko. The second question is, why did the youth who tried to pick up the axe give Tenko a look of hate and envy? Have a think about why maybe the youth that tried to pick up the axe might have given Tenko a look of hate and envy. What was he envious of? Why might he hate him? We'll talk about this at the end. Stempsy, Bruno's wife, gave a cry of surprise when she saw Tenko. "I'll tell you about this boy when we have eaten," Bruno said. "Get food now. He has not eaten for 2 days. Sit there, boy." He indicated the stone bed-like trough that was filled with heather and bracken. Near to the bed was a square hole about 1 foot deep, lined with slate. It was filled with fresh water. Bruno lifted an earthenware bowl from the floor and filled it with water and held it to Tenko's lips. He gulped down the water thirstily. More, he begged, pointing to the bowl. Bruno refilled it, and Tenko took it up into his own hands this time. Colour began to flow back into his cheeks. That is good, he said. Have you been without water for 2 whole days? Bruno asked. No, there is always a horn of water left in the boat in case we cannot easily get back to land. That lasted me until this morning, as I took only a sip at a time. But I have been thirsty since then. Callie emptied the limpets and shellfish onto the stone slab and began to scrape the limpets out of their shells into a shallow earthenware bowl. She used a tiny flint scraper as a knife. Stempsy took the crabs and eel and wrapped them up in a covering of wet clay, which she thrust into the glowing hearth of the fire, prodding it into place with a long leg bone of an ox, which she used like a poker. There the shellfish would bake while they ate the raw limpets. The family gathered round the peat fire in the very centre of the house. The smoke escaped through a hole in the thatched roof. Round the fire was a low curb of stone, around which were placed larger stones for seats. On these the family sat. There is meat too today, Brocken whispered greedily to his sister, and pointed to the legs of mutton placed on a stone dresser at the side of the hut. It will be quite a feast. His mouth watered. Callie offered the dish of limpets to her father first, who signed that she should hand the dish to Tenko. Eat well, do not hold back, he told Tenko. Tenko took a handful of the limpets and swallowed them hungrily. Bruno himself ate some, and so did Stempsy. Hand the dish to the stranger again, Bruno ordered Callie. Callie did as she was bidden, but Tenko looked doubtfully at the dish. There is not much left in it, he said, hesitating to put his hand in. Callie and Brocken owe you thanks for saving their lives. Today you will eat their share of the food. It will be your reward and their punishment for going to the rocks when I had forbidden it, Bruno said sternly. Callie hung her head. Brocken began to sniffle. The tears came into Callie's eyes. Nevertheless, she held up her bowl to Tenko. Please, eat, she said in a low voice. I cannot. Tenko's voice faltered. Let Callie and Brocken eat too, he begged Bruno. Bruno's face softened. Not of the limpets or the crabs. I have spoken my word about that. They may eat of the meat, though, because you ask it. Callie looked gratefully at Tenko. Brocken cheered up at once, though he still looked regretfully at the limpets. While the crabs and the eel were baking in their clay wrapper in the fire, Stempsy handed the mutton bones to everyone. Earlier, she had thrust the meat among the hot stones in the fire, and though the outside was scorched, the inside meat was almost raw. That did not worry anyone. The family was used to eating its meat either raw or partly burned. They all gnawed at the bones with relish, their strong white teeth tearing the meat away. Tenko smiled happily for the first time as he sat on a stone beside the fire. He had been asked by this family to sit at their hearth and eat their meat. Among his people, this meant that they accepted a stranger as a friend. No doubt it would be the same in Bruno's tribe. When they had done eating, they relaxed, and Bruno seemed inclined to ask questions of Tenko. You carry a strange axe, Tenko. Will you let me see it? Tenko handed it to him. Bruno examined it curiously. What kind of stone is used for the head? He asked. It is not stone nor flint, Tenko told him. It is made out of 2 substances found among the rocks in a land that lies far to the south. They are tin and copper, and they show like streaks in the rocks. The tin and copper are melted together in a hot fire and poured into a shape like an axe head hollowed in the sand. That is what my father told me. Did your father not make it for you? No, we have no tin or copper in our land, but my father's father came from a tribe in the south. He had 2 axes with him, that he got by trading skins with men from far across the sea that lies far away to the south. My father had 1 axe. He gave the other one to me. Bruno felt the edge with his thumb. It is far sharper than our stone axes. Take care of it, Tenko. While I live, I will not be parted from it, Tenko said. Stempsy drew the clay wrappers from the fire by the long piece of bone and left them to cool. While they were waiting, Tenko looked about him. Bone rafters made the roof and turfs had been laid upon them to thatch them, but a large hole had been left above the hearth for a chimney. Through this the smoke swirled. At one side of the hut was a stone dresser built of slabs resting on pillars of stone. You have beds and a dresser, just as we have, but ours are made of wood from the trees that grow round about our houses, he remarked to Bruno. Wood, like your boat, Callie put in. Yes, we make nearly all of our things from wood. We have no trees on this island. That is why we make our things out of stone and bone. They will last many lives, and our people will use them long after us, Bruno said. Our wise man Lockhart has told us about the trees, though. To him, all the stories of our tribe have been handed down. He is our storyteller during the long winter evenings around the fire. Bruno broke away the clay covering from the crab. He broke the shell with one stone and pulled away the two large claws. These he gave to Tenko. He was about to hand Stempsy her share when there came the sound of feet along the narrow entrance to the hut. Carwin, the youth who had given Tenko the look of dislike, poked his head through the door. Bruno, I am sent to ask you to come to the meeting place. The men of Skara have gathered there. Bruno frowned. At first he stayed where he was. Then he dropped the crab into a bowl and rose to his feet. Very well, I will come. Stempsy lifted the bowl of shellfish onto the stone dresser and covered it with a piece of slate so that no rats could get at it while the family slept. So that's up to page 28 of our book, The Boy with the Bronze Axe. And the last question today is, why was the father angry that they had gone to the rocks? So have a think about that. The 3 questions we've had today. What did the word beguiled meant? So beguiled was in the sentence that said, when Callie tried to placate her father with the thought of a good meal to come, Bruno was not to be beguiled, however. So in this context, beguiled means that he is not going to be mesmerised or hypnotised by the thought of the good meal. He is not going to be almost magically taken away from his anger. The next question was, why did the boy give Tenko a look of hate and a look of envy? Envy means that he's jealous. He's jealous of Tenko's axe because he knows they have no axes like that where he lives. And maybe the look of hate is because he knows that with that axe, Tenko could be a great warrior. And the last question, why was the father angry that they had gone to the rocks? He was angry because he knew that the tide would come in and that would be a great danger to his children. So he had forbidden them to go to the rocks, knowing that it would be dangerous for them. And he was angry because they had disobeyed him and gone there anyway. I hope you enjoyed this section. Tomorrow we'll read pages 28 on to the end of the chapter and find out what happens next. I wonder why the men have gone to the meeting place. I suspect it will be to talk about Tenko.